welcome one more time into the studio of Revival Time Radio. This is the Watchman radio program, a program that prepares you for the times that we are living in, and to, of course, to make you quite aware of the nearness of the imminent and soon coming of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Question: where is this world headed? And should the Lord tarry, what is the future for Christianity here in our world today? I want to help you answer that question today. Let me share with you two scriptures from the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 13 and 14. It reads, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad and easy to travel is the path that leads the way to destruction and eternal loss. And there are many who enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow and difficult to travel is the path that leads the way to everlasting life, and there are few who find it." This is what the Word of God tells us, that very few are going to find that way to heaven. Why? I will be showing you why in a minute or two. I want to show you a video here with some staggering statistics, something that will open your eyes as to where we are really headed. Have a watch.
Are we witnessing the fall of Christianity in America? According to a new Newsweek poll, 62% of Americans consider the United States a Christian nation. That's down from 69% during the tail end of the Bush presidency last year. And a whopping 68% say religion is losing its influence in American life.
Over the past 30 years, across England, the number going to church has fallen dramatically. In 1979, nearly 5.5 million people went to church on a Sunday. In 1989, that had fallen by 1 million. By 1998, the figure was down to 3.7 million. And by 2005, just over 3 million were attending church. That's a fall of 40%. If the decline continues at this rate, it's estimated that by 2020, there will be just 2.3 million, less than 5% of the population. It's a sobering statistic, and for many Christians, a depressing picture. But why has it happened? One of those not shy about voicing his criticisms of Christianity is atheist and newspaper columnist Johann Hari.
Hello, I'm Anne Whittaker. Hi, very good to see you.
He thinks he knows why my faith is in decline. Johann, what have you got against Christianity, and where do you think it's going?
Well, I absolutely defend the rights of Christians to say and argue whatever they want, to assemble whatever they want. If anyone ever tries to stop any democratic citizen in this country freely speaking and making their arguments, I'll be the first person on your side arguing in their defence. But look, Christianity has lost the argument. It's failing to persuade people. You are free to make your case, and you've lost. And I think it's because the factual claims that Christianity makes have been proven to be false, and because the causes which the dying embers of Christianity have attached themselves to are pretty ugly ones.
Well, let's hold on just there for a few moments. The teachings of Christianity are that you forgive people who've harmed you, that you pray for your enemies, that you turn the other cheek. I do not understand why you want those to be snuffed out.
I don't. They're human teachings. Do you think I don't have a concept of forgiveness because I'm an atheist?
I think that you would not immediately pray for your enemies.
I don't pray because I don't believe in a supernatural being, but I think I'm as forgiving to my enemies as you are to yours.
But the Christian creed preaches that forgiveness. It isn't down to individuals to come to that.
I teach my nephews to do that, and I'm an atheist. I teach them to try to understand where
Yes,
people
you
are
as an
coming
individual,
from.
what I'm saying is that here you have an organisation which sets out to promote those values en masse.
Well, let's talk about the lessons they're being given. The lessons that those people are taught are, amongst other things, that they should campaign to retain laws that legally discriminate against gay people, that treat gay people as second-class citizens. I think Christianity will go into the same dustbin of history as, say, the worship of Zeus or Thor. And I think broadly that'll be a positive thing. Now, the values that you think of as Christian values, of forgiveness and kindness and charity, they will persist. But I think the kind of nasty dogmas that lead people to discriminate against gay people or treat women badly because they believe God commanded it, I think those will wither. I don't think they're persuading people.
I think Johann overlooks the pioneering role my faith had in making Britain the civilised nation it is today.
People often talk about Christianity, the world's Christianity, nominal Christianity, being attacked from the outside. And I do not mean to say that's not the case. We have secular organizations and atheist organizations and different religions, and there is an attack going on concerning nominal Christianity out there in the world, in the United States, Europe, and elsewhere. But there is also a crumbling from within. The idea that somehow nominal worldly Christianity is only facing enemies from the outside is just completely false. There's a crumbling and a rotting from within as well. And frankly, it's the kind of thing you see in a lot of other places where liberal-minded academics who have a certain social perspective that is different than something traditionally held get into positions of power and decide to move things in that direction. It's not actually conspiratorial, it's just the way life works.
Welcome to post-Christian Europe, a land filled with beautiful monuments to an ancient religion that few Europeans practice anymore or know much about. Europe today has gone beyond unbelief and is now labeled Christophobic and anti-religious. While an American might look at a church building and think nice thoughts, that's rarely the case with a European, especially here in France, where religion is more likely to be associated with oppression, irrelevance, or simply the past. In France, as in much of Europe, only 5% go to church on a weekly basis, and most of them are the elderly. Only 10% think religion is very important. For all Europeans, that figure is only 21%. Journalist Richard Miniter.
As an American living in Europe, when you tell Europeans that you go to church on Sunday, they look at you like a museum piece, something strange.
Near Brussels, at Christian Center and Assemblies of God Church, Belgian pastor Paul de Vos ministers to a culture in which Christianity is largely irrelevant.
In the United States, people would more quickly turn toward at least Christ in general and Christianity because it's still somewhat part of the culture in general. Here in Europe, we have gone beyond that point, and we do not expect anything from religion, apart from some very abstract hope that there is something after this life.
And among the clergy in the state churches, unbelief is extraordinarily high. Baylor sociologist Rodney Stark.
It's easy to have a negative religious experience going to church in Europe. The one place where unbelief is rampant is in the churches.
The study Fragmented Faith found that in Britain, 1 out of 5 Anglican pastors do not believe in the bodily resurrection of Christ, and only 60% believe in the virgin birth. That's a lower level of belief than among churchgoers.
It's the churches they don't go to, and one of the reasons they don't go is that the people running them don't care if they don't go.
There have been news reports recently that although church attendance in Europe is low, belief in God is actually very high. But belief in what sort of God? Judging from surveys, it's a New Age faith, with a large dose of moral relativism. Vince Esterman, a Frenchman who grew up in Australia, has been a French pastor for almost 20 years and has a dynamic street ministry in Paris. And although he has led a lot of Frenchmen to Christ, he doesn't talk much about revival. He speaks of a Europe that is still moving away from God.
Europe that was the custodian of the gospel in the very early decades now is the continent that is rejecting the gospel and Christianity. And so we have seen France go into decline, and with it, Europe generally.
But instead of looking to faith for answers, the European media continue to mock America's high church attendance as weird. The British Economist magazine writes, "To Europeans, religion is the strangest and most disturbing feature about America."
So it's open season on evangelicals, in particular in France. But nothing, absolutely nothing can be said against Muslims, of course, because there's always retaliation.
Rodney Stark writes in The Victory of Reason that Europe owes everything to Christianity. Its culture, its freedom, its science, and its wealth. But European leaders today are defiant in their efforts to keep God and Christian faith out of public life. A sociologist at the Sorbonne in Paris says, "We are not going to sacrifice women's equality, democracy, and individual freedoms on the altar of a new religion." But some would say Europe has a new religion. Italy's culture minister, Rocco Buttiglione, a devout Catholic, calls it a nihilistic fundamentalism against truth. Stark simply calls it hedonism and says it's why Europe is dying. No Western European country is having enough babies to replace its current population.
The loss of faith in Europe is like an unseen black star that still has a tremendous gravitational pull. They don't understand why their culture is failing. They don't understand why the divorce rates and suicide rates are so high. They don't understand why so few European women have more than one child, and why on most European streets you see more dogs than children. All this is an impact of the death of real Christian belief in Europe.
Europe today has been described as a majority of Christian atheists and a minority of Muslim fanatics. It's an exaggeration, but there is a spiritual void that Islam waits to fill. It was this void in the life of a Belgian woman, a former drug addict named Muriel de Gauck, that caused her to convert to Islam, go to Iraq, and blow herself up trying to kill U.S. troops.
I have been an eyewitness to France becoming increasingly Islamicized. There is no longer an ability to morally resist a strong culture like Islam coming into the country.
Europe is going to get more religious than it is, either because of a revival of Christianity or because they go Muslim. You can't sit there with no babies forever.
And because faith impacts everything from culture to economics to the war on terror, analysts say religious America and anti-religious Europe are likely to drift farther apart, unless or until Europe returns to God.
As our special report.
This is the story of 3 Chicagoans, all raised as Christians, all who decided to ultimately reject that religion.
Internet is down.
Nadira Rodriguez Muhammad grew up Catholic, but found herself constantly questioning the long-held beliefs of her family.
I always felt that something was missing for me.
Ian Bushner is a law student at the University of Chicago.
I felt like that there wasn't a God.
Whitney Nichols is a new Loyola grad who grew up in suburban Streamwood.
I guess what I was really looking for was what felt most natural and most logical to me.
When Nadira entered high school in the mid-1990s, she became friends with a group of Muslim girls.
They just had this level of contentment and a sisterhood that was... Yeah, I wanted to be a part of that.
Ian drifted towards the Muslim students at his high school as well.
I remember defending some of my friends at school from accusations, after 9/11. And then I started reading the Quran. I said, oh, here is a form of God that I've never been presented before.
After September 11, the interest actually increased.
Dr. Assad Basul is professor at Chicago's Islamic American College. He says the tragedy 6 years ago initially prompted angry questions, but eventually many of the curious found answers to their own spiritual questions through Islam and converted.
Sometimes, negative things bring positive things.
In fact, according to a first-ever random sampling of American Muslims by the Pew Research Center, 21% of the nation's 2.4 million Muslims are converts to the faith.
Eventually, I realized that I was looking to the Quran for advice, for direction, and at the point that you believe that the Quran is revelation from God, then you're a Muslim.
The conversion has meant many changes in their lives, Ian prays 5 times a day.
According to a report by Faith Matters, the UK is seeing a surge in Brits converting to Islam. In the last year, around 5,200 people in Britain converted to Islam. As many as 100,000 have converted in the last decade. Now, while that's not a huge number if you consider the UK's total population, which is around 61 million, it's definitely notable. Of those converting, about 62% were women, and the average age is over 27 years old. And the vast majority of women who converted also changed their appearance, with a significant majority adopting the hijab, or a headscarf. Now, we've done stories here on the show how some European countries have voted to ban the hijab in public, to ban minarets. But that's not the case in the UK. Now, the obvious question really is, what is behind this high rate of conversion? Some followers told Britain's The Telegraph that they felt lost in their own lives, that they were lacking in purpose before conversion. And most Brits have reported that since their conversion, they've been living with ease in the UK, that they've only faced minimal problems from their families about their new choice of religion. So what's going on? What is compelling so many young white women to convert to Islam in droves?
According to research, in order for a culture to maintain itself for more than 25 years, there must be a fertility rate of 2.11 children per family. With anything less, the culture will decline. Historically, no culture has ever reversed a 1.9 fertility rate. A rate of 1.3, impossible to reverse, because it would take 80 to 100 years to correct itself, and there is no economic model that can sustain a culture during that time. In other words, if 2 sets of parents each have 1 child, there are half as many children as parents. If those children have 1 child, then there are 1/4 as many grandchildren as grandparents. If only 1 million babies are born in 2006, it's hard to have 2 million adults enter the workforce in 2026. As the population shrinks, so does the culture. As of 2007, the fertility rate in France was 1.8, England 1.6, Greece 1.3, Germany 1.3, Italy 1.2, Spain 1.1. Across the entire European Union of 31 countries, the fertility is a mere 1.38. Historical research tells us these numbers are impossible to reverse. In a matter of years, Europe as we know it will cease to exist. 1.8 children per family. Muslims, 8.1. In southern France, traditionally one of the most populated church regions in the world, there are now more mosques than churches. 30% of children ages 20 and younger are Islamic. In the larger cities such as Nice, Marseille, and Paris, that number has grown to 45%. By 2027, 1 in 5 Frenchmen will be Muslim. In just 39 years, France will be an Islamic republic. In the last 30 years, the Muslim population of Great Britain rose from 82,000 to 2.5 million, a 30-fold increase. There are over 1,000 mosques, many of them former churches. In the Netherlands, 50% of all newborns are Muslim, and in only 15 years, half of the population of the Netherlands will be Muslim. In Russia, there are over 23 million Muslims. That's 1 out of 5 Russians. 40% of the entire Russian army will be Islamic in just a few short years. Currently in Belgium, 25% of the population and 50% of all newborns are Muslim. The government of Belgium has stated 1/3 of all European children will be born to Muslim families by 2025, just 17 years away. The German government, the first to talk about this publicly, recently released a statement saying, "The fall in the German population can no longer be stopped. Its downward spiral is no longer reversible. It will be a Muslim state."
Consider yourself a person of faith, but do you really know God? The Pew Research Center found that most Americans failed a quiz asking some of the most basic questions about religion, and atheists and agnostics did better than Catholics and evangelicals on that quiz.
Having seen all that, what do you think? Do you think that the Lord will tarry for that long and watch the world go down that drain, that pipe hole, or whatever you want to call it? I don't think so. The coming of the Lord is nigh, and we have to be prepared now. So wherever you are watching, if you're not ready for the Lord, get ready now, before it is too late. Thank you for joining me again today. Again, of course, I would invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll see the link at the bottom of your screen there at the right-hand side. If you want to contact me on Facebook for any queries, questions, whatever, you can find me there by searching for Curtis Minister Roach or Minister Curtis Roach, or even the Watchman radio program. Leave me a message and I'll respond to you at my earliest convenience. Remember, you can also follow me on Twitter at Roach_Curtis. I would invite you to share these programs, share these programs to your friends, your families, and let these messages go out and go around the world. You know, they are eye-openers to, help us to realize that we are living in the last times. Until next time, God richly bless you, and goodbye.
Jesus, come.